You know, the Lakers are off to a very impressive 9-4 start, but the more as time goes on and the more we watch them play, it's becoming increasingly hard to ignore the flaws in their team. No, I'm not going to say they're drastic flaws and not enough to make them a bad team, not even close to it in my opinion. I think they're a good team and probably right along that upper second tier of the West, right behind teams like OKC and Denver. But if they want to get to that top tier, want to compete and do it consistently against teams like that, then they got to address a few needs in their team in my opinion. And I really hate to say that after a winning their game last night against the Pelicans, hopefully winning again tonight against the Bucks. Yes, they play back-to-back tonight, unfortunately. But after that, they come home and hopefully will get LeBron back, playing in their first game back on their own home court on November 18th, again hopefully with LeBron. And with a number of teams in the West, let alone the entire NBA already kind of giving up and rumors swirling that they might trade their team and potentially have a fire sale with their team, I think it's worth looking into, especially for a team like the Lakers who are simply one or two moves away from top tier contention. So with that in mind here, we're going to talk about the three teams that reports say that might be open to trades already, are likely looking to sell off their team and again, potentially have a fire sale with their team, meaning that they might be looking to trade their entire team or at least open to the idea of it. Those three teams being the Dallas Mavericks, the Sacramento Kings, and the New Orleans Pelicans, who coincidentally are 13th, 14th, and 15th place in the West. Dallas having a record of 3-9, Sacramento having one of 3-10, and New Orleans having one of 2-10 following their loss to the Lakers last night. So with that in mind here, are they worth looking into and what might they have to offer in for a team like the Lakers that desperately need more two-way talent? Well, let's talk about it. And beginning with the Dallas Mavericks, the team that's currently 3-9 and reports say that they might be looking to trade anyone from Klay Thompson all the way down to Anthony Davis, I think they'd be open to trading pretty much anyone on their team that's not named Cooper Flag. The only problem here being that I really don't love the options on their team, especially if we're talking about two-way talent. They don't have a lot of it. Obviously Cooper Flag, obviously Anthony Davis, but either they're not going to trade them or the price is way too high to get them. Or even for Anthony Davis, he literally can't be traded back to their team until 1 year after they made the trade with him, which I don't think they'll trade for him again to begin with. But apart from those two, you can make an argument for PJ Washington, but he just signed a contract extension and I think the price for him would be pretty high too, so if he's not off the table, he's pretty darn close to it. After them, there's not much left in regard to two-way talent. I mean, kind of with Daniel Gafford, I'm not really going to call a center a two-way option. You know, yes, he impacts the game offensively and defensively, but he's not a floor spacing big. The price to get him would be pretty high, and the two-way ability that he offers isn't the two-way ability that the Lakers need. They need more of a two-way 3-and-D skill set, a guard or big wing, somebody that's a good three-point shooter, decent offensive player in general, and a good defender with that. So not really Daniel Gafford. So apart from all of them, I guess I could maybe point to Najee Marshall. Yes, you could point to Max Christie, but much like Anthony Davis, they can't trade for him right now, and I don't think it would be a really easy trade for them to make, even after that February 4th timeframe. But for Najee Marshall, you could make an argument for it. This season isn't shooting particularly well from three, is a sub 30% three-point shooter, but if you go back to the 2023-24 NBA season, was nearly a 39% three-point shooter. On top of that, has been a consistent, reliable defensive option, is a big wing at roughly 6'7". No, don't do the dumb meme. But all joking aside here, I think he'd be a decent option for them, kind of a starting level option on the trade market. Probably wouldn't take too much to get him. Only having a salary of $9 million this season, could either trade Gabe Vincent, unfortunately can't trade Maxi Kleber, much like the Anthony Davis or Christie situation, can't trade him back to their team for a full year. But simply match the contract, then throw in possibly a future first round draft pick swap, and that would probably be enough to get it done. And like I said, that's probably the only real option that I'd point to on their team. Yes, I'd love to have PJ Washington, but I don't see it being very likely. I'd even like to have Daniel Gafford, but not a dramatic need for him. And I think that's probably the only realistic option to point to with the Dallas Mavericks. But that's not the case for both Sacramento and New Orleans, and going back to the Sacramento trade that I brought up a few videos back, directly pointing to Keon Ellis, that's my favorite player on their team to trade for, and one of my favorite trade targets in the entire league at that too. I mean, no matter what you want to point to with him, he's pretty much a perfect fit for their team. Whether you're talking about his age at 25, would fit their long-term time frame and would fit the timeline of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, or the skill set with him, the offensive skill set with three-point shooting, is a 43.2% career three-point shooter. Up until this point has never shot below 41% from the three-point line. Then on top of that is a great defender, is both a defensive playmaker and a good, solid, reliable individual defender as well. So definitely has the 3-and-D moniker, definitely could be a fit for their long-term future, could be a fit in their starting lineup, or come off the bench for their team and probably would positively affect their team no matter what. But to get him, it probably would take a pretty penny. Thankfully he's under an expiring contract, so that would help the trade price for him if Sacramento is willing to deal him. Probably looking something like Dalton Connect and at least one future first-round draft pick swap, maybe one in a second-round draft pick with it, maybe up to 2 future first-round draft pick swaps. No, not actual first-round draft picks, but a first-round draft pick swap. Probably what you're looking at here to get Keon Ellis. And in my opinion, for their team, it probably would be worth it. Again, I think he'd be a great fit for their team, no matter if you're pointing to the offense with him, the three-point shooting with him, the athletic ability, the defensive upside, the defensive reliability, the age, the long-term fit. No matter what you point to, I think Keon Ellis would be a great fit and a great trade target for their team that I would love to see them try to get. But apart from Keon Ellis, I don't really like much else in the Sacramento Kings. Not that they don't have a few good trade options, but again, specifically for the Lakers and what they need on their team, two-way talent and two-way ability, not much else to look for here. I mean, yes, with Keegan Murray, but I don't see that happening. Just signed to a new contract and is under contract until 2031. He's likely part of their long-term future, at least their intermediate future. Would take a hefty price to get him that I'm not sure would be worth it for the Lakers here. And again, I don't really think they'll trade him. Wouldn't make a trade for Zach LaVine, much too pricey and way too big of a contract. Wouldn't trade for Domantas Sabonis, too pricey, way too big of a contract, and wouldn't be a good fit in my opinion. Wouldn't trade for DeMar DeRozan, older player that's not a good fit, isn't a two-way option, let alone even a good reliable defender. Love Malik Monk, but also isn't a great fit. I mean, maybe if the price would be cheap for him, then maybe I think about it, but not a great option for their team. Not really the guy I'd want to spend assets on. Kind of the same thing for Dennis Schroeder. Wouldn't be a terrible option, is kind of a two-way option, but not really at the top of their priority list and the top of their need list. I mean, if they try to swap him with Gabe Vincent and a minimum contract, maybe, but that's not the way I'd spend their contracts and their expiring contracts, let alone their trade assets. So again, with Sacramento, I'd definitely point to Keon Ellis. With Dallas, I'd point to Najee Marshall, and I think that's kind of what we'd be looking at here with both of those two teams. But how about the New Orleans Pelicans? And here I can actually point to a team that I would like multiple trade targets or trade options on their team, a number of which probably wouldn't be available or would take too big of a price to get. One example being Trey Murphy, who if he's not untouchable, he's pretty damn close to it, and the Lakers simply don't have the assets to get him. But after him, I wouldn't have interest in Zion Williamson, Jordan Poole, or DeJounte Murray, though there are a few options after them that are a bit intriguing here in my opinion. One of which being Jose Alvarado, Grand Theft Alvarado, a guy they just matched up with and a guy that's played pretty well this season. Getting more playing time with DeJounte Murray hurt, even Jordan Poole hurt and missing some time, currently playing roughly 20 minutes per game, averaging 7 points per game, nearly 3 assists per game, 1 steal per game, and shooting a career high 43% from the three-point line. I think that's pretty good and is a reliable backup point guard option, is a defensive pest, is a pretty good individual defender, but as we know, his main strength is with his passing lane and, even creeping up behind guys and taking the ball directly away from them, simply causing takeaways and turning that into points on the other end of the court. That's what he does, and that can give your team a spark off the bench, even a pinch in a starting lineup. I would have some minor interest in Jose Alvarado if they would be looking to trade him, which reports say they might. One report from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points saying exactly that. So might be a name to monitor on the trade market, might be a guy that could add some sneaky two-way value to their bench, but he's not exactly the wing player that we'd like, not the wing defender that we'd like, so ideally I would look to pair him with another player on their team. Either a lesser option like a Sadiq Bey, who's kind of close to a two-way player, isn't quite up to the standard on defense, but would give them some wing depth and is a guy that's playing pretty well to start this season. currently averaging roughly 12 points per game, over 4 rebounds per game, shooting a career high 40% from the 3-point line, also 45% from the field, so fairly efficient, is a big wing at 6'7", weighing well over the 215 pounds that he's currently listed at. Could probably give them some decent minutes off the bench, add another 3-point shooter to their bench unit, pair him with Jake LaRavia, possibly with Jared Vanderbilt, add some more catch and shoot ability and simply more offensive spark off their bench unit, simply more size as well, is a pretty good rebounder, and I think he'd be a decent option for them, albeit not a great defender. So potentially pairing those two in a trade, trading Gabe Vincent and maybe a future first round draft pick swap and a second round draft pick to get them, I wouldn't be entirely opposed to that. Or then potentially going for more of a home run trade. I've talked about it, this player being Herb Jones, my dream trade target for them, or at least one of my dream trade targets. Really the dream 3-and-D big wing trade target, a guy that's a 40+% 3-point shooter, elite defender that's a former first team all defender, that being back in 2024 if I remember correctly, a guy that would fit their timeline at only 27 years old, literally a perfect fit with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, even when LeBron comes back too. I think he'd be a great fit, but it would take quite the price or quite the trade to get him. Probably with a salary filler and then literally every trade asset they have to offer. Something like Gabe Vincent or Max Kleba with Dalton Connect, their final tradable first round draft pick completely unprotected, probably 2 future first round draft pick swaps, maybe even a second round draft pick, probably what it would take to get Herb Jones, and even that it still might be worth it. But overall, that's kind of what we're looking at here at the Pelicans, mainly pointing to Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, and maybe Saddiq Bey. Probably the best trade option of the three between Sacramento, Dallas, and New Orleans. I would point to New Orleans as the team with the most to offer them, especially in regard to two-way talent, but don't completely overlook Dallas. I wouldn't be against making a trade for Najee Marshall, even if a PJ Washington could be available, definitely have interest in that too, albeit not very likely. And then for Sacramento, not much to look for on their team, but the main one and the only one is a very good option. Again, being Keon Ellis. So with that in mind here, what do you guys think? Of the 3 teams that reportedly might enter a fire sale and potentially sell off a large majority of their team via trade, which one would you have the most interest in? Would it be Dallas, Sacramento, or New Orleans? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day or night.